Good evening and welcome to Friday's Live with me, Raj Nayak. Today I have with me a very, how do I define him? A very multi-talented personality. He's a journalist, he's an author, he's a script writer, he's a lyricist, he's even hosted television shows. But above all, he's a master storyteller. वो कहानियां सुनाते हैं. So today हम उनकी कहानी सुनेंगे. So I have with me the one and only Neelesh Misra.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Neelesh, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Such a pleasure.
I have been in my own little way following your journey, seeing the things you have done, and I'm fascinated by the different things that you dabbled in and you still continue to do. And a lot of people don't know, I kept speaking to a few people generally when we were discussing you. Each one thinks you only do this or you only do this. But the amount of things you're doing is unbelievable. Like, first of all, I don't know where you get the passion and the energy from and how you manage, how do you juggle so many balls? And that's something that I'm going to ask you. But I want to start from the beginning, जैसे मैंने कहा हम आपकी कहानी सुनना चाहते हैं. And in a typical, the way you tell your stories, I want to listen to your story. So I just want to know your beginning, if you can.
I was born in Lucknow, where I am right now. I have a twin brother, and I'm 18 minutes older. His name is Shailesh. I grew up in Rewa in Madhya Pradesh, and my earliest memory is being at the Sainik school in Rewa, and I used to sit by the window in my class, and there was a fighter jet kept in the school playground. I think that's one of my earliest very vivid memories that I have. And my father has been a geologist throughout his career, so we used to go to a lot of tribal areas for his field work. We stayed in tents. I went along with him. I learned the language of people from different tribes, their music, etc. It was a beautiful growing up. And then he moved to Nainital, where I was my growing up years. I became a classic small town guy. And I was there until class 10 in St. Joseph's College. Nainital was an amazing experience because the joys of being in a small town, and I'm sure you relate to some of those. There was somewhere, of course, the obvious joys, but to me, there were some invisible ones, like the sanctity of touch. If you held someone's hand in Nainital, it meant something. Or if your fingers accidentally touched someone's fingers. I wrote in one of my stories कि चाय का प्याला देते वक्त जब उसकी उंगलियां छू जाती थी तो महीना भर सपने आते थे. But then I came to Lucknow, and then later
उस वक्त के रोमांस भी कुछ और ही होते थे.
रोमांस बिल्कुल. और मैं the Nainital Lake, I used to walk up and down every day. The library is at the center, so there are some stone benches there to sit there, moongfali khate hue. And I had started writing for the Pioneer and Swatantra Bharat, which were very big at that time, as a freelancer. And I used to earn my pocket money by writing full-page Sunday magazine, like front-page articles. And I bought a 2-in-1, which was very snazzy at the time because you switched one and then it played the whole cassette, and then that stopped and the other cassette started. So it played an entire hour, and I would put on ghazals and switch off the lights. And
is that where your whole thing about audio and radio and all came through?
Yes, absolutely. I think Nainital had an amazing effect on me because it taught me the simplicity of relationships, the unhurried nature of life. Um, Made great friends, but and then when I went to Delhi, as I was saying, I was suddenly in crowded buses where everybody was invading on your space. So the sanctity of touch, which was something for me. I mean, it meant something for me at that time. Where I think it, uh,
Destroyed that whole.
yeah, I was suddenly a nobody. In Nainital, I was a somebody. I mean, I was carrying my sense of space with me. I don't know. I've never analyzed it this way like I'm doing now, but yeah. So and then the journeys that followed, I prepared for a year for the IAS exam, and whenever I speak to students, I tell them about my failures. I wrote a year, and I didn't get through in the IAS exam, and then I studied a bit for JNU's International Studies exam, and I didn't get through. And thank God. If I mean, I thank my stars that I didn't clear any of those tests. Although at that point it seemed like the end of the world.
I do the same when I started my career. You know, there are 3 or 4 jobs that I actually went for, and I
Right,
didn't get those jobs.
right,
And I was like, oh my God, if I had got those jobs, my trajectory would have been something completely different. You know,
absolutely.
so sometimes, yes.
So yeah, and then I was I never wanted to be a journalist because I didn't think much of journalists. I once infamously described them to a friend as glorified stenographers. And I said, why are they just writing what someone else is dictating? And then, as destiny would have it, I became a journalist. So it was God's way of telling me that, you
Can
know,
I just pause you here for a
yes,
moment?
yes.
Which year was this?
1995, I cleared, I was at the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, IIMC.
No, the reason I'm asking is if you had made the same comment today, it would have had a different significance, you know. But I'm saying in 1995 for you to say it as a,
Yeah.
probably it was maybe not so obvious then.
No, because I didn't know. I mean, I was in Nainital. I was the morning's Hindustan Times reached me at 3 p.m. So I'm in that time zone, right? When my father used to tell me कि IAS का exams are देख लो, I didn't even know what happened when you clear. What is IAS? I mean, what happens? What is this? Is this the job? Okay, no. You clear this to be eligible for many jobs. There were kids who were clearing SAT exams and TOEFL and all that, and that seemed so far away because I was in this small cocoon, unclear about my career. I wanted to be about 8 or 10 things at the time, and I'm blessed that I did become most of those. I wanted to set up a band. I wanted to write books. I wanted to write songs. I wanted to publish a magazine or newspaper and advertising or some kind of media space. So there were these uh, fancy dreams which were very out of place for my classroom, for my circle. I was like this odd guy.
So tell me, journalism, where you worked, where do you work? The Hindustan Times, or, or
No, my first job was with India Abroad, which was
yeah.
yeah, for expatriates. And so what happened was that I was at IMC, and when my professors, I mean, the professor was asking everybody where they wanted to intern, I said, please don't do it for me. I'll find my own internship, which she found, very, very subversive at the time. I had been writing. So first was the Swatantra Bharat and Pioneer. So I had a bunch of clippings. And then when I was in Delhi studying for the IAS, I was writing in Mainstream and a couple of other. So I had decent, like a decent body of work to show to get a journalism job. So I called up the Reuters office, and the Reuters bureau chief then was a burly 7 foot Irish guy called Paul Iredale, whose accent I just did not understand. I was new from Nainital, new to this world, this big city. So when I called him, I said, I'm so and so. He gave me a time to meet him, but I misread that time. And so I went, and he was upset because I hadn't appeared at that time he had given me. And I apologized. And then he said, okay, you can start from the 31st of March. Now, my final exam at IMC was on the 31st of March. But when I came, because there was this unsettling, thing, I couldn't go back to him and say, hey, can I start? Like, I don't want to take that risk again with the son. But so I thought in my head, why did I study this entire year at IMC? To do actual journalism, which I'm getting to do at Reuters, the best possible place, better than all the other internships. So I was the only student who did not write the final exam and hence did not get the IMC degree, which everybody in my class said, like, you're nuts. But साल भर से तुम क्या कर रहे थे यार? तुमने इतना tough exam दिया, इतना tough competitive exam दिया. तो मैंने कहा इसी के लिए तो कर रहे थे. So I think, and then some years passed, and then later one day I got a call when I was at India Abroad, and they said, we want to give you your degree. So I said, I can't write an exam. He said, no, just give us some clippings or whatever. So I did get it. But yeah, I mean, I think going against the stream has happened at every stage of my life. Not because of any activist subversive zeal, but I think because of a graceful and humble confidence. I think I have that to do things a certain way, and not knowing how to do things has been my biggest strength. Not knowing how to do radio, not knowing how to start a company.
Even in journalism, you excel because you won the Ramnath Goenka Award, you won the K.C. Kulshi Award.
Yes.
I think for the one was for your coverage on the insurgency. What was it?
Yeah, the Ramnath Goenka Award. I actually I won twice. The first was for a series we did at Hindustan Times called India Besieged. And the second time, even more proud because it was the first year after which I had set up Gaon Connection. So when I went back to the same venue, it was like Sudama had come to the palace of Krishna. And, we were, because when I left journalism, I was the deputy executive editor of Hindustan Times. And a lot of people, again, it was similar to the moment of not writing the IMC exam. Everybody, they said, like, you're nuts. You're leaving this, like, for what? So I took a sabbatical and then quit, and I went to Bombay, and Bombay happened. And then in the same year, 2012, at two ends of that year, radio happened and Gaon Connection happened. And at one point I told myself, it's a sham that I'm running Gaon Connection out of Bombay.
So tell me a little more about Gaon Connection, when you started it.
Gaon Connection, I have done a lot of reporting for the large part of my career. Extensive rural reporting. And wherever I went, I used to ask myself, why does rural India not have a voice in the media? Now, these things were well beyond me. I mean, I'm a teacher's son. I was a salaried employee. I don't know how to do business. I don't know how these things are done. So,
so when you quit your job at Hindustan Times, I mean, I'm just saying, and you moved to Bombay.
Yeah.
You moved to Bombay with the intent of what? To set up Gaon Connection? To
no.
Another company? Or
I
what?
moved because I was writing Bollywood lyrics since 2001. My first film was Jism. My first song was Jadoo Hai Nasha Hai. And all these years I've been writing, and often, I mean, one trajectory of my life could have been that I wrote Jism, which was the biggest song of the year, and moved to Bombay. Because I used to get calls saying, hey, are you the same Neelesh Misra who wrote Kya Mujhe Pyar Hai, or whatever? But I didn't. So I flirted with Bollywood for about 7 to 8 years.
And what? How many songs have you written? Quite a lot.
I've written about songs in about 35 films.
35.
Yeah. And So, but I mean, because credits are not often given on radio, and I mean,
No, but I saw one. I saw a video that went
yes,
that
yes,
was there on Twitter yesterday, where I
yeah,
15 of you have come together saying credit de do yaar.
yeah, yeah, yes,
No, I
absolutely,
think it's high time that
yeah.
lyricists get their credit. But I'm coming back, and the reason I'm
Coming back.
compartmentalizing it is I want to track your journey because
Right.
yours journey has been gone parallel in many ways. It's you've been script writing,
Yes.
lyricist, journalism. It's not linear. So I just want to. So tell
Yeah.
me first about Gaon Connection, then we'll come to your other.
Right. So I was in Bombay, and I was missing journalism, but I had started writing. I mean, I was doing work with assignments with Yash Raj, and then radio had just started. Radio happened by sheer accident because I had done an album with Saregama, and Atul Churamani, our friend, was instrumental in helping us do it. And then, but there was no marketing budget, so I went to Big FM, and Mr. Amit Khanna, he sort of helped me. And then when I went there, they said, "Well, would you do a radio show?" Tarun Katyal said, "Would you do a radio show?" And I said, "I've
That
never
is
done radio."
that was Yadon Ka Idiot Box.
That was the Advocated Box. So all this was happening, and this was a new and very exciting phase of my life, because as a journalist in Hindustan Times, and a print journalist, may I add, I'm an old-fashioned journalist. So it was never about us, our name, our fame. It was, okay, the byline. So this was new. Suddenly fans were writing in, suddenly people from different parts of the country, but I was missing journalism. So I, on one of my visits to Lucknow, very close friend of mine, Karan Dalal, we said, "Hey, let's start something." And he, of course, later went off to New York. But that set off the thing where I said, "Okay, what do I do? Do we do a photocopied newspaper?" I mean, it was that primal. Looking back, I was the Farhan Akhtar who had no Ritesh Sadhwani. Nobody to look at it in a business sense, and that's not a bad thing at all. Nobody to tell me that, hey, you're doing these mistakes. But so started a newspaper in 2012 December. Now I had thought that we will start it, and then in 6 months the Unilevers and the FMCG giants of the world would be lining up at our doors. But none of that happened because rural readership was not measured. IRS did not measure rural readership. So you could be doing whatever amazing work you're doing out there, but nobody gave a damn. When you went to the Western building in Goregaon, and when you went to Group M, well, they had no clue. So that was a struggle. And then I think a good tangential effect was that I became a very expensive storyteller, because when somebody came to work with me as a storyteller, my price was what Gaon Connection needed to survive. And because I was a bad businessman, it was needing a lot of money. It was, so suddenly I was on one side becoming a very expensive storyteller. On the other side, Gaon Connection was struggling, doing, good. We started winning journalism awards and all of that. But okay, distribution, how do you do that? I mean, how do you, as you scale, keep the integrity alive, all of that. And then we joined the digital bandwagon pretty late, but now we are, and then we became video first. So today, I mean, we are India's biggest rural media platform. We have just set up an insights company, which is the pivoting of our company, which is very, very exciting. There is no platform in India to tell governments, policymakers, brands what rural India wants and what it doesn't want regularly. So as we speak, we've just completed our first survey. It's called the Rural Report. It will be a regular report every 3 months, and then an annual report called State of Rural India, which is about the impact of COVID on rural India. It was done in 23 states, 179 districts with more than 25,000 respondents. CSDS in Delhi is, designed it. So now I think we're getting to do what I created Gaon Connection for, which was to become a mirror of rural India, a very honest mirror to tell urban India that, hey, rural India is not just a stereotype. It's not just a place where between floods and bad things and some awful news and some harvest, nothing else happens. It's not that. So it's been a very satisfying journey. Gaon Connection became profitable last year. Of course,
So who is the audience? Who are the people who subscribe to Gaon Connection?
the audience is pretty big. It is on the one side any rural Indian, but to me, it is the rural-minded Indian, and that is, I mean, apart from the 67% people who live in rural India, out of the remaining 33%, at least half of them have relationships in land, in memories of nostalgia about empathy for rural India. I'm talking about some 80 to 90% of the country. I'm talking about expatriates who, so, I mean, the other day I was doing some meeting with somebody in the US and they said, well, we read Gaon Connection a lot because whenever we want to get a sense of, what's happening. So in that sense.
And what's the revenue model?
It's fairly unique because we don't have an investor. I'm slightly careful about taking an investor who might want us to give up on our integrity. We don't do paid news very strictly. So we do a lot of video and audio content with a lot of partners. So for example, a UNICEF or even a brand, an FMCG brand, but the filter is, the only prism is, would I do this anyway? So for example, if I'm doing a series around women role models for an FMCG company, would I do it anyway? Of course I would. Thank God somebody's paying me to do it. And so these kind of projects, which have this, which are ring-fenced in terms of our editorial integrity, they fund our journalism and keep it completely independent because we barely have any advertising, not because we don't want it, but we don't have a great sales team. We don't have a sales team. I'm the salesman of the year at Gaon Connection.
Okay.
So
quick question. I mean,
yeah.
because I want to cover lots of things with you.
Yeah.
So quick question. So what is your view as a journalist? And now that you're doing India's largest rural newspaper, where do you think there is a lack of mainstream newspapers not covering local news? Forget local news. They don't even reach northeast and they don't even go south. It's as bad as that, right?
Absolutely.
So what is your view on journalism today?
Oh, don't get me started. Well, so Gaon Connection, by the way, is now, we don't have a print edition now because India changed in the last 8 years, and then with digital and all that. My view is that
because the reason I ask you is you started by saying I didn't want to join journalism because I always felt there were stenographers. That's what you said. And
yeah.
I
But I started
will
Gaon
back to that statement. So I just want to know your view on journalism today.
Yeah, but I started Gaon Connection because I love journalism, and I think people like me who believe in old-fashioned journalism, who believe in the journalism of footwork, are very few now. And I don't say this as some kind of praise because there are lots of them, but the larger milieu is not amenable to the kind of journalism that people of my generation want to do. We get a lot of interest from people who want to do our kind of journalism. Now, what is happening today is, one is of course the TV world, and that's completely gone to the dogs. TV journalism, and a lot of heads of channels, senior executives are friends.
I want to ask you this question because since you have insights from rural India, because that's where you're doing a lot of work.
Right.
So when they see what's happening on TV today, what is the general perception? What's the general view of the masses?
I see them getting hugely influenced by it. And that's what scares me, that if you don't do good, if you're doing bad journalism, it's making, bad people. That's the power of journalism, because the scale, at a time when you have news channels at least claiming more viewership than GEC, I could maybe, okay, it was a stretch, whatever, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. But I'm saying at a time when the impact of the news channels is so humongous, the responsibility is so much higher. I mean, at Gaon Connection, such a tiny organization compared to all of them, I tell people that, okay, in the first 2 years, you guys could make mistakes, but now the spotlight on you is so much higher, and people point out. So one is the TV world, and I don't see things changing there at all. Their business models are all warped, and I think it all comes down to that. But even in the digital world, I mean, the digital news platforms started out, some well-known, some not so well-known, but they have wonky business models. They didn't think those through. You cannot have models that have no monetization plans, that are only dependent on either initial investor funding and then some grants, etc. I mean, it's a guaranteed slow death. So we committed a lot of mistakes, but today we have a lot of confidence that we are perhaps the only news platform of its kind that has turned profitable on its own with no investor money, and we're constantly reinventing. The insights piece is going to be like just amazing. It's going to give us fascinating reach. It's going to change the game, the narrative.
Yeah.
So
okay, I'm just
yeah
moving a little because I would love to see the report when it comes out.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would love to see, and I'm sure, and I think there is a need for that. There's a need gap, and I'm sure. I mean, if it's insightful, I'm sure a lot of people will want to subscribe to it. Corporations, government bodies, and everything. But due to lack of time, I'm just trying to rush you, because you're, like I said, your career is not linear. There's so many things I have to cover, and I don't want to lose this opportunity of having got you here. You've written a few books, right? I mean, you authored a few books. Would you like to talk about them?
The first book I did was on the Indian Airlines hijacking IC-814. It's called 173 Hours in Captivity. And HarperCollins had published that book in 2000, right after the hijacking. My second was on the royal family massacre of Nepal. That was done by Penguin. It's called End of the Line. Both of these were extremely tough books to do. The IC-814 story, because there was a lot out there, and this is before social media, etc., etc. So there was a lot out there, but still, the challenge was to what is it that's new that you're telling. So I've now given the rights of that for a web series.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah. The second one, which any of your friends can talk to me for rights for a web series, is on the Royal Nepal massacre. Fascinating story. Why? Because, I mean, I landed in Nepal. I remember that night. So I used to live in Noida, and that night I had a fight with the lady then in my life. So I had put my mobile phone on silent mode for the first time. When I woke up at 3 or something, there were like 32 missed calls from my office, which was crazy. And they said, we've been trying to call you the whole night. The Crown Prince has done this. You have to get on the first flight. I missed the direct flight. So I went via Varanasi and reached earlier. But I reached a country where the army had no spokesperson, because you're not supposed to speak to them. The royal family, who do you reach out to? So there was a complete wall of silence. It was the biggest assignment of my life as a journalist. I was then with the Associated Press, the AP. And I was also at a bottom in my career. I mean, I was not feeling confident about myself. not feeling, like a good journalist. And suddenly there was this huge opportunity, and so I made a call to a number I found in the palace, and I said, look, I'm trying to do my work honestly and with integrity. The onus is on you to tell me the truth. So there was a silence, and the person said, I've never heard that thing. I've never heard this one. This is interesting. So he called me back after some time with all and I started breaking every possible story, and I was being followed by the top media platforms. Came back, did that book. The third was an awful novel I did, which was my first, called Once Upon a Time Zone. It was a call center novel. Call centers had just come in, and it was whatever. I wish it wasn't my first book, because it put me off novels for a long time. And then there was a book called The Absent State, which was born out of travels in insurgency areas, which I did with Rahul Pandita. And 9 states we had traveled to, about 50,000 kilometers. I did a book with my father, the story of his very fascinating life, called Dream Chasing. And then a couple of others, edited ones. And then the Hindi books started after my radio journey started, when we started compiling the books, the stories we were doing in the form of books. So the Yaad Share series. So. You've not given the signal yet when I am rambling.
No. I'm enjoying it. I'm just getting engrossed in your conversation, and then I'm just visualizing, because we had all read about it. It was shocking, right? It was a shocking incident that happened, and one couldn't believe it. It was like that. So when you were telling me that you were in Nepal, and I was visualizing what had happened, because we had all seen it in the news, and something that's fresh in my memory even today. So I just got engrossed in the whole thing, and I was thinking, I would someday obviously talk to you about what actually happened.
No, I think I've been privileged that as a journalist, I've covered assignments that really shaped me, changed my life, made me a better human being. I mean, I was 21, 22 when I started journalism, and then when I joined the AP in 1998, my first assignment was the nuclear tests of 1998. Then there was the super cyclone in Orissa, where I extensively traveled everywhere. And then the Kargil War in 1999, where I was there for 2 months. I was the last reporter to leave, along with my colleague and rival, Orko Datta, one of India's finest news photographers. So we both were the last to leave. There were floods to report. There were earthquakes. There was this mid-air collision between a Saudi Arabian plane and a Russian plane, and in Charki Dadri, Haryana, and went there in the middle of the night, and it was strewn with limbs of passengers. I mean, I've seen horrible things, and I think all of that gave me far more empathy than a lot of my colleagues. It made me understand emotion. Like I always tell people that I don't have a lot of knowledge, but I have a lot of experience. I've spoken to a lot of people, and I'm a bloody good listener. I'm very proud of that. I'm genuinely interested in listening to people and learning from. I can sit on a park bench and talk to a stranger and be very interested in what he or she is saying. And I think all of that shaped me. All of that. When I started writing stories for radio in the first season, I wrote all the stories myself. It was all that coming out, my personal experiences, but also lived experiences of other people. And वो एक शायर का, एक राइटर का पेट्रोल होता है, तो वो चलता रहता है. But what nags me now is कि वो पेट्रोल खत्म होता दिख रहा है. क्योंकि जब गांव कनेक्शन शुरू किया तो then I became an entrepreneur. Then I had to look out, okay, so I have 107 people on my staff. So their salaries must reach on the first of every month. What's our business model? Things like that. So I stopped being a reporter. And I'm sure, people of your stature have seen it also, that as you rise in your hierarchies, you stop doing the things for which you joined that profession in the first place. You join advertising for the love of something, but suddenly, you're a managing director and you stop doing those things you came, to do in those professions for different things. So I think my battle every morning is every morning I remind myself that I want to be a reporter for Gaon Connection again. The same reporter who won the Ramnath Goenka Award in 2012. I want to write stories for my show again. I used to write them in the first season. Now we've done like more than 6 seasons. So that's a challenge, but I'm happy that that it still nags me, that it's still not normalized. I've not compromised with not being able to do that. Something in me revolts. I try to eke out that space every month, every week, to be able to insulate myself and write, because that's what I know. The other things I have learned, I don't know business development, or I'm a fairly good salesman now, but it's something I had to learn to keep my platforms alive.
No worry.
Rambling alert.
No, you've done pretty well. You have 107 people, and you slowly you're diversifying. And tell me, how has this last 4 months been for you? Since you're an entrepreneur and you're running this tight ship.
Yeah. So in March, we were in a very good place. I'm talking about Gaon Connection. It's only one of the ventures. I'll tell you about the other ventures in a bit.
I'm coming to that. Yeah.
We were in a good place, profitable, turned profitable, a lot of deals signed up. And then slowly, through March, the murmurs started, and suddenly the calls happened, Nilesh bhai, cancel karna padega, kuch nahi ho raha. So, in 2 days, we were on our knees, and I had no idea what to do. And it seemed like deja vu again, because it reminded me of that some of the toughest times that we had had. I think I'm not religious in a structured sense, but I believe in some larger power. And I do think that something happens when I'm down in the dumps. Something happens, help comes from somewhere. So suddenly we got information that we had won a global Google competition that we had applied for and forgotten, the Google News Initiative. Then we won another sort of small grant from the Omidyar network. Then some, other deals materialized. So we were able to piece. My biggest challenge was, and I did a town hall digitally with our entire team, and I said, hey, this is it. We'll have to. I don't know. I didn't want to mention the word layoffs or whatever, but I didn't know what I would be able to do. And many of them reached out and said, please reduce our salaries. I think I'm very fortunate to have a team like that. But then I could go back to them in literally 10 days. And I said, well, there are no job cuts. There are no salary cuts. Let's make this happen. And I'm very proud that at a time when a lot of other colleagues in other organizations and sectors have gone through a lot of trouble, none of our colleagues went through that. So, but then of course, while we survived through that, we had to quickly reinvent. We had to come up with new products digitally. We had to think in different ways. So that is currently happening. It's working well for us. If the next year is bad as well, then there'll be something to worry about. But I think we're sorted until about March or so.
So quick, I'm sure things will get better. It has to. So I just think we all need to be hopeful. I think somebody said we are all in the same, in different boats, but in the same storm. So I'm quickly coming back. I've noticed that everything you've done, okay, you've written, you do a show called Slow Cafe, you sell something called Slow Cookies, you have a slow moment, then I saw something called Slow Experiences. And you do a show also,
interview.
Yeah, interview with so tell me, why do you use the word slow, and where did the slow come from?
So, Pankaj Tripathi, the actor, he was in Lucknow shooting, and I didn't know that he was. Or actually, one step before that, uh, I built my home in my village, which is an hour from Lucknow. I wanted to do it. I didn't know how engaged I would be or how much I would stay there, but I wanted to do it out of a sense of guilt that I was not giving enough time to my parents' school, which was their dream and their life's work. So I said, okay, if there's a room there, I'll go there, and if I go there, I'll maybe solve some problems. So we built like 3 rooms there, and then one day my wife asked me, what's the name of this place? And I took about 3 minutes and I said slow. So the name of my home is slow, because that's the state of mind, and that's how I feel. I will invite you there as soon as things ease.
I've seen a lot of interviews that you do there. I mean, so when people come to shoot in Lucknow, you take them home. How does it happen?
Yeah, they have to come to my village. Yeah. So Pankaj Tripathi was shooting, and I texted him saying, I'm coming to Bombay. Let's meet. I'd never met him. He said, मैं तो आपके शहर में हूँ. मैंने कहा ठीक है तो गाँव चलते हैं कल. So I drove him there, and there was no show, nothing, no plans. We were so unprepared that there was one lapel mic between the two of us, which I gave to him, of course. And there were 2 camera persons shooting, and we were talking as I drove. And then we reached the village and we spoke some more there. And after he left, I said, "Ye to acha ho gaya." And the good thing about running a startup is that you don't have to send mails to 10 people to get approvals. So I said, "Ye show bana dete hain." So, चूंकि ये slow में हुआ है, let's call it the slow interview, and that also defined the show, that there's no rapid fire. No, it's a certain kind of conversation. There's no expectation gap for anybody who comes. That said, this was again one turning point, because like when I started radio, it was about telling stories that were not titillating, not sensational at prime time. When we did journalism, it was something similar in journal. So the same thing, when you're doing digital content, the common wisdom was that do something snackable. Because there's no, and our first episode was 30 minutes. We were very scared to put it out. And people said, can we have some more? So we put out a part 2 of Pankaj. And these were the same people who watch Netflix and Amazon, and who the gurus tell us that they have, very little attention span. But I think that's been the graceful confidence that comes. So then we started doing 45 minutes, then 1 hour, then 1.5 hour interviews. And suddenly we saw that we've had like more than 200 million minutes of watch time. I think last month, it should be more now. And suddenly the same Amazon and Netflix were calling us to say that, hey, can you feature our guest? That was another moment of silent, quiet victory for me, that I was sitting in my village out, in the middle of nowhere. And I was able to create content from there, which was being watched by millions of people around the world. I was able to do it on my own terms. And in a world that is algorithm driven, that is numbers driven, that only understands numbers, we were able to give numbers as well. But we didn't take a sponsor.
Yeah.
Twist. So now we are going down the membership route, and we want to have members. So the slow interview, then the next step was slow cookies, because we said, let's come out with food products which are in line with our philosophy. So on one side is Gaon Connection, empowering the farmer. On the other is creating things to audiences that are pure, that have integrity. So the promise of integrity that everything I do hopefully carries was with, and they, people love them. So then I looked back and I spoke to a couple of friends in the investment, the corporate, and they said, why don't you streamline this? And when I look back, I thought that everything I've done in my life there's one word that defines it, which is slow. I didn't call it that. My journalism, which was rooted, my radio storytelling, the books, everything. So now that's the umbrella. The umbrella is the slow movement. and we will be creating membership program for the slow movement, maybe a rewards program also, that you do good and you earn points. You give us proof of doing good. Uh, so you go to an elderly people's home and do storytelling once a week, you get X points, and you get something in the real world. So maybe a box of cookies, or get to be.
Where did your inspiration come for telling stories? Because to be very honest, a lot of people know you more because of your storytelling, than for Gaon Connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Or my journalism, or the films, or
exactly.
Whatever. It happened.
Hindi also, we can listen to your storytelling.
एक मैंने लाइन लिखी थी अपनी कहानी में कि ऐसे खूबसूरत इत्तेफाक से नहीं होते। तो कहानियां सुनना जो है वो एक ऐसा खूबसूरत इत्तेफाक था, क्योंकि मैं कभी सुनाना नहीं, मुझे तो नहीं पता था कि मैं कहानी सुना सकता हूँ, और मैं कभी ये करना भी नहीं चाहता था। लेकिन चूंकि एक मैंने बैंड बनाया था, 2 मिनट लेके और इसका बैकग्राउंड बताता हूँ। हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स, the editor of HT Brunches, Poonam Saxena, my friend, I'm in Kashmir covering one of the state elections in a remote town called Doda, when I get a call from her saying, तुम बोल रहे थे तुमको लिखना था ब्रंच के लिए, अब लिखो, इस बार 50 साल हो रहे हैं दूरदर्शन के, तुम्हें कवर स्टोरी लिखनी। मैंने कहा भैया मैं डोडा में बैठा हूँ, यहाँ पे मैं खाना नहीं मिल रहा है, स्टोरी नहीं मिल रही, इंटरनेट नहीं मिल रहा, nothing doing, there's a deadline. So that night I sat down and I started writing a piece reluctantly, because the theme was 50 years of Doordarshan. But I realized I was talking about my own life. I was talking about कि मैं लखनऊ के घसियारी मंडी मोहल्ले में हूँ, हमारा घर है, और जहाँ पर 3 बजे एक रसगुल्ले वाला आता है जिसकी बड़ी बड़ी मूछें हैं, सर पे एक कांच का बक्सा है जिसमें ऊपर थोड़ा कम पैसे वाले 25 पैसे के रसगुल्ले हैं, नीचे थोड़ा महंगे वाले हैं। नीचे वाले में कभी खा नहीं पाया क्योंकि उतना हम तब नहीं खरीद पाते थे, और वो रसगुल्ले वाला जब आता था दूर से चिल्लाने लग जाता था, और हमें पता लग जाता था कि अब, और फिर नानी से मांग के जाते थे, फिर कभी नानी अमरूद में नमक काट के नमक डाल के खिलाती थी। वो टीवी होता था ट्रॉन का पुराना, जिसमें खड़खड़ खड़खड़ करके डब्बा खुलता था और इंडिया वेस्ट इंडीज के मैच होते थे। तो तभी हमारे नाना जी, क्योंकि टीवी के बगल में मंदिर था, नाना जी वाज वेरी वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट, आ जाते थे और रूथलेसली विदाउट इवन लुकिंग एट अस, तो पीछे बैठे होते थे, टक से टीवी बंद कर देते थे। मैच इज अबाउट टू स्टार्ट, श्रीकांत इज एट द crease and Gavaskar, Malcolm Marshall and Michael Holding are about to bowl, TV is off, पूजा happens। पूजा की जो कोरियोग्राफी थी वो बड़ी सेट थी कि पहले भाई कृष्ण भगवान की रजाई हटाई जाएगी, फिर हनुमान जी होंगे, फिर शंकर जी होंगे। तो हमें पता था कि जब हनुमान जी पे आए तो भी 7-8 मिनट बाकी हैं। जब तक ये पूरी हुई पूजा की कोरियोग्राफी, नाना जी गए, टीवी खोला, 3 wickets down, 20 runs। I suddenly realized I was reliving all that. It was a very beautiful experience, and I've received so many responses to that from all kinds of people of all ages, elderly people, young people, and I realized that nostalgia is completely untapped in the current creative space.
Yeah. Speaking about nostalgia, and I listened to one or two of your, few of them. No, I wouldn't say one or two, few of them. And what I noticed, and probably that's why I really connected to you in a way, is जितने भी आपने बात कही है ना, and I come from a small town. I come from I have a rural background as well, so I could relate to a lot of things. And the era that we've lived in, okay, in the last whatever it is, 50 years, is from telegram to telephone to STD to
PCO,
मतलब सब कुछ देखा है। You have lived in a village and you came to a city and then you've gone back.
Yeah.
Okay. So अंतर क्या है अभी? क्या आप what's the difference now today? If you have to choose between the two, obviously you've chosen the village, but what's the difference? What's the learning? What's the transformation that you've seen that you can talk about? And you can say it in Hindi, because I love listening to you in Hindi.
देखिए, भावनाएं तो वही हैं, लेकिन उनको व्यक्त करने का तरीका बदल गया है। पहले आप और हम किसी को चिट्ठी लिखते थे और 10 दिन इंतजार करते थे कि पोस्टमैन आएगा। पोस्टमैन के आने का वक्त मुकर्रर होता था। मुझे तो पता होता था कि 3 बजे घर था त्रिवेणी नगर लखनऊ में, वो मोड़ से दिखती थी उसकी, पहले एक टायर दिखता था, फिर पोस्टमैन दिखता था, फिर पूरी साइकिल दिखती थी, और मैं देखता रहता था क्योंकि किसी की चिट्ठी का इंतजार रहता था। इंतजार आज भी वही है, लेकिन अब वो ब्लू टिक बन गया है। तो हम हम वही है, लेकिन जो एक इमीडिएसी आ गई है, रिश्तों का जो धीमी आंच पे पकना, वो नहीं है। रिश्तों का तुरंत बनना होता है, ग्रेटिफिकेशन तुरंत चाहिए होता है, और रिश्ते बनते बिगड़ते तुरंत है पहले। सो मुझे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं जो औजार है, जो टूल्स हैं, वो बदले हैं उन्हीं चीज़ों को व्यक्त करने के, लेकिन हमारे अंदर का डीएनए तो वही है। और ये भी है कि मेरी जो यात्रा है वो ये बताती है कि हम शायद उतना बदले भी नहीं है, क्योंकि अगर बदल गए होते तो रेडियो पर रात के 9 बजे देश के 60 शहरों में और न जाने कितने गांवों में लोग एक आदमी की कहानियां नहीं सुनना चाहते, जब वो टीवी देख सकते हैं उस वक्त, शॉपिंग मॉल जा सकते हैं, मोबाइल देख सकते हैं, और देखते भी होंगे बहुत से लोग, लेकिन ये नहीं करना चाहते। तो शायद हम शायद कहीं ना कहीं जो मेरी यात्रा रही, उसने वो शहरों की जो धूल है उसको हटा दिया, कुछ कुरेद दिया, और हमारे अंदर जो था, जो हम सब में था, उसको उसको दिखा दिया। वो इमोशंस, वो invisible emotions, जो like there was a friend of mine working in a newspaper, she said, यार मेरा हस्बैंड है, मेरे सामने तुम्हारी कहानियां सुनता ही नहीं है। तो एक दिन मैंने देखा कि वो ड्राइव कर रहा है, तुम्हारी कहानी आ रही है, वो उधर उधर देख रहा है, मैंने अचानक देखा उसकी आंख में आंसू है। तो इसलिए नहीं सुनता है वो, क्योंकि वो तो रोता है तुम्हें सुन के। And I realized that India is a country of weepy men, because because they don't get to cry, they don't get to they live this facade. And when I started one new season, one of the first messages that came, oh thank God sir, I can cry alone now on my way back to work, from work. तो वो अंतर है, कुछ अलग भी है, लेकिन मिट्टी वही है। और कहीं ना कहीं मेरी जो यात्रा है, चाहे गांव के लोगों को गांव की फिर से याद दिलाने की, चाहे कहानियों के जरिए छोटे शहरों से दोबारा जोड़ने की, चाहे स्लो इंटरव्यूज के जरिए, वो वहीं वापस जाती है जमीनी। बिकॉज आई देयर वाज अ लाइन दैट अ फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन सेड इन कॉलेज, समटाइम्स इट्स गुड टू गो बैक टू वेयर इट ऑल बिगैन। I think that's what constantly I'm trying to do through different avenues, trying to go back where it all began.
So you've written screenplays for a number
I've,
of films.
yeah, I've done Ek Tha Tiger and Tiger, but I was not happy with them. Those were star-studded films. I
Tips.
want to write screenplays, but also there's one thing. I interviewed Salim Saab, Salman Khan's father, and सलीम साहब बड़े कमाल के आदमी हैं, और मैं उनको बहुत वक्त से जानता हूँ। उन्होंने एक बार एक बात कही थी कि he used to play cricket. I'll send you a link of that interview. It's a lovely interview. And he played until I think the district or state, and then gave it up because he one day saw Mankad playing, and he realized he can never be that good. So I have often assessed in my life, if I'm doing journalism, can I be the best journalist in the country? And I told myself, no. If I'm writing films, can I be the best script writer? No. If I'm presenting on TV, can I be the best presenter? No. But if I'm narrating stories, can I be the best? Maybe yes. I think at some point, one has to reassess our strengths very honestly, very brutally, and give up the lure, the greed of many things. I am greedy. I'm extremely greedy to do new things. And in a way, I've now started saying it's my biggest, curse, that I keep thinking of new and big ideas which are all scalable. And I don't have a team to, I don't go around seeking funding. I don't have a team to, but they're all scalable if I start talking about those ideas. But at some place I have to assess that what am I best at. So yeah, script writing happened, but not what I want to just, anything I do, the only prism I have is positive social impact. Anything. As a
That's
content
very
creator, as a rural entrepreneur, or even when I'm selling cookies, if am I serving that? Otherwise, what's the use being an armchair journalist writing opinion pieces? I don't want that.
So, of all the things you've done, because you've done, what's your first love? Storytelling? Can I come to that conclusion?
Yeah, I think storytelling is there in some form or the other in pretty much everything. When I've been writing lyrics, I always attempted to tell a story, to not just do rhyming, but to or books or.
Which is the best work in lyrics, would you say? Which is your best work, or what would you think?
I think that's a tough one. Nobody's ever asked me that, but that's a tough one. But maybe my work on radio, because it's had a real impact on people's lives. And when I say real impact, people have said that, and thousands of people have said that their depression was healed because they heard our stories, and of various ages. Students have said that they got better grades. Now, as a communicator, there can be no bigger privilege and honor and blessing that you become a part of your audience's day, and they are able to change their lives, or our work is able to change their lives in a real way, not just feeling good, but in a real way, getting out of bad relationships because we listen to your stories. I mean, wow, what a blessing. So I think I would say that's like upfront.
Great. I think we've covered quite a bit today, and we are just running out of time. But thank you so much for being with us. And one day I'm going to do an interview with you only in Hindi, and only जहां आप हमको सिर्फ कहानियां सुनाते जाएंगे.
जरूर, लेकिन वो मेरे स्लो में होगा.
हाँ, स्लो में होगा, ठीक. But I think we've covered quite a bit, and thank you so much for being here today. And to all our viewers, thank you for watching. This is the Neelesh Misra. You must go and watch him on Savan. He's on every audio podcast platform. His show is on radio stations. And once you listen to his stories, I can tell you, you'll get hooked to it. I mean, I'm a victim of that, so I can with conviction say that. And is there any shows that they should watch which is currently on? I mean, any?
Yeah, I think please do come to our website, which is turnslow.com, turnslow.com. And a lot of my work is on my YouTube channel. Just type Neelesh Misra, you find the slow interviews, all my storytelling. I do poetry. I keep doing a lot of stuff. So it's all there. So I hope to, see many more people there.
I want to ask you one question. You've written so many lyrics. You've done everything. Do you also sing?
I'm not trained, but yes, occasionally.
Before you go, can you give us 2 lines?
Sure. Saying from this.
I can say I got Neelesh Misra to sing on my show.
I love your enthusiasm, by the way. This. So a film called Barfi, where I wrote this song. I'm going to sing a few lines. क्यों ना हम तुम चले टेढ़े मेढ़े से रस्तों पे नंगे पाँव रे, चल भटक लेना बावरे, क्यों ना हम तुम फिरे जाके अलमस्त पहचानी राहों के परे, चल भटक लेना बाबुरे, इन टिमटिमाती निगाहों में, इन चमचमाती अदाओं में लुके हुए छुपे हुए है क्या ख्याल बाबुरे, क्यों.
Thank you so much. You couldn't have ended on such a positive note. Thank you, Neelesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj.
And I'll connect with you. And when all this is over, I'm going to come to Slow.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.